The next thing of discussion is how IT and OT security practices vary. So the security practices in IT and the security practices in OT, so they are almost different. So let us see how. The IT information is used to make business decisions such as those in process optimization. So IT always makes decisions based on the process optimization, but whereas OT information is leveraged to make physical decisions such as closing a valve, increasing the pressure. So such kind of security measures will be taken in the OT environment, whereas in the IT environment the process optimizations are taken into consideration. Thus the operational domain must also address physical safety and environment factors as part of its security strategy. So as OT is mainly concerning with its security with some physical activity, so such physical safety measures also should be embedded into the IT, which is not associated with IT domain. So IT and OT teams and tools have been historically separate, but this has begun to change. So since from many years IT and OT have been treated as a separate sectors, but now they have begun to merge. They have started to converge, leading to more traditionally IT centric solutions being introduced to support operational activities. So most of the IT centric solutions are tried to be given for operational activities in OT. For example, systems such as firewalls and intrusion prevention systems are being used in IoT networks. So firewalls for protection and intrusion prevention system means preventing the system from intrusion attack. So those are implemented in IoT networks. So for performing such operations for convergence of IT and OT, so there is a model which is called as Purdue model for control hierarchy. So you can see in this diagram different levels are given. So here the separation is there, but still there is a sector which is combining both IT and OT. So here you can see these levels 0 to level 1 are OT sectors, belonging to OT sectors, and level 4 and 5 belonging to IT sector, and there is a intermediate layer called as demilitarized zone, which is having shared access to both IT and OT sectors, and which will isolate both the OT and the IT levels. And there is a safety layer also which will provide safety to the OT. So let us see these levels in detail one by one. So this model identifies levels of operations and defines each level. The enterprise and operational domains are separated. As I said, it is separated by this DMZ. DMZ is demilitarized zone. Enterprise zone. So you can see in this, the zone is this enterprise zone. So let us see what is this enterprise zone. So level 5 is enterprise zone, which is supporting the corporate level applications such as enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, document management, and services such as internet access and VPN entry for the outside world. What is this VPN? VPN is virtual private network, which extends a private network across a public network and enables user to send and receive the data across the shared or public networks as if their devices are directly connected to the private network. So that is VPN. So services like internet access and VPN entry from my outside world are also supported by this enterprise network. Then level 4. So we can see here in the level 4. Level 5 is this enterprise network. Level 4 is business planning and logistics network. So let us see what is this level 4. The IT services exist at this level and may include, so services of IT are included here. The services like scheduling systems, material flow applications, optimization and planning systems, and local IT services such as phone, email, printing, and security monitoring. So such services, IT services are provided in level 4 in business planning and logistics network. Then we have the industrial demilitarized zone, which is isolating the OT and IT sectors. So here this DMZ provides a buffer zone where services and data can be shared between the operational and enterprise zones. IT and OT, the data can be shared. It also allows for easy segmentation of organizational control. By default, no traffic should traverse the DMZ. So by default, no traffic of data should traverse from DMZ. Everything should originate from or terminate on this area. So any traffic which is moving to the IT to OT or OT to IT, it should always originate from DMZ only, but it cannot traverse through it, or it can terminate there. So anything can, that means IT can send to DMZ, and from DMZ it will go to OT. Similarly, OT can send something to DMZ, and from DMZ it will reach the IT. So DMZ, everything should originate from DMZ, and also it can terminate there. Then the operational zone, which are the lower layers of the Purdue model. In the operational zone, we have level 3, which is operations and control. So this includes the functions involved in producing the desired end products. So here production, because it is related to OT, it deals with the functions of producing the product, monitoring and controlling the entire operational systems. This could include, so these functions will include production scheduling, reliability assurance, system-wide control optimization, security management, network management, and other required IT services such as DHCP, DNS, and timing. So what is this DHCP? DHCP is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and DNS is Domain Name Service. Then level 2, which is supervisory control. It includes zone control rooms, control status, then control system network, application administration, and other related applications such as human machine interface and historian. So this supervisory control will include all these: zone control rooms, controller status, control system network, then other applications like human machine interface and the history, maintenance of history. Level 1 is the basic control in the OT. So where controllers and IEDs. What are IEDs? IEDs are intelligent electronic devices. Controllers and these devices, dedicated HMIs and other applications may talk to each other to run the part of all of the control functions. So level 0 process. This is where devices such as sensors, actuators, and machines such as drivers, motors, and robots communicate with controllers or intelligent electronic devices. So we can say this as the edge, isn't it? Where the sensors, actuators, and other smart objects exist. Drives, motors, robots, all of them will communicate with each other in the level 0, which is a process level. Then the safety zone, which is the bottommost layer. So here safety is critical for OT. We have studied about that. Security means safety in OT. This level includes devices, sensors, and other equipment used to manage the safety functions of the control system. The key advantage of such models is it allows security to be correctly applied at each level and between the levels. So what this security zone contains is the safety functions for devices, sensors and other equipments. So such kind of a Purdue model will be useful for implementing the security at each levels and also between the levels. So this is the Purdue model. Okay, next we'll be discussing about the formal risk analysis structures. There are two structures, Octave and FAIR. So why we are discussing risk analysis structures? Because we have studied so many challenges of IoT and so many challenges of OT, isn't it? So as there are so many challenges, there will be definitely possibilities of risk. So how the risk is analyzed, how risk should be analyzed, for that the structures are narrated here. Two structures, Octave and FAIR. So what is the risk? Risk is a situation involving exposure to the danger, and risk need to be managed to maximize the realization of opportunities. So let us see how this, okay, in our real life only we'll be facing so many risks on a regular basis, right? So like there may be an insider attack, your friend only may be doing something wrong to you, or some family member is only stealing money from the house, and there may be a cargo ship which is taking some goods, and there is a risk of ship being sink. And also there is a for example, if we have tied a rope to some heavy thing and there is a risk of that rope being torn, and there is a risk of a server being crashed or failed. And if you start a new business, there is a risk that whether it will be a success or a failure, isn't it? And also we also have a risk in education department, like because of COVID-19, next year will we have admissions sufficiently or not? So these are all the daily life risks. So such risks are also there in IoT environment and also OT environment. So let us see how these risks are analyzed using these structures. In industrial environment, there are number of standards, guidelines and best practices which are available to understand what is the risk and how to reduce them. So such standards are like IEC 62443 for risk assessments for foundational requirements, ISO 27001 for organizational people, process and information security management, National Institute of Standards and Technology NIST for critical infrastructure such as NIST Cyber Security Framework, North American Electric Reliability Corporation's NERC Critical Infrastructure Protection has legally binding guidelines for North American utilities. It has guidelines. And IEC 62351 is a cyber security standard for power utilities. So these are some of the standards and guidelines for risk management, analysis and management. So two such risk assessment frameworks are Octave and FAIR. So what is this Octave? It stands for Operationally Critical Threat Asset and Vulnerability Evaluation. In short, it is Octave, from the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. And another structure is FAIR. It stands for Factor Analysis and Information Risk, from Open Group. So these two systems work toward establishing more secure environment. When there is a risk, it will analyze it and it will assess it and try to implement the methods which will reduce this risk, so the system will become more secure. They both have different approaches and sets of priorities, so their working procedures are a little different. Knowledge of the environment is key to determining security risks and plays a key role in driving priorities. So let us look at the structure, risk assessment structure, Octave. Octave has undergone multiple iterations, that means it has been reworked many a times. The version focused here is Octave Octave Allegro. So the discussion here, what we are doing in the textbook also and here also, we are focusing on the version Octave Allegro, which is a lightweight and less burdensome process to implement. Allegro assumes that a robust security team is not on standby or immediately at the ready to initiate a comprehensive security review. That means it assumes that there cannot be a standby team or ready team for working with risks, but it should always be reduced. So this diagram tells you the Octave Allegro steps and phases. So here there are 4 phases and there are 8 steps, and the stages are establish drivers, profile assets, identity threats, and identify and mitigate the risk. So let us see these steps one by one in detail. The first step is establish risk measurement criteria. So here it will measure the risk. Measuring the risk means how much amount of risk. How do we measure how much amount of risk? That means whether the risk is high or the risk is very high, or the risk is low or it is very low, negligible, or it is moderate. So like that we will measure the risk. Is done with an emphasis on impact, value and measurement. The point of having a risk measurement criteria is that at any point in later stages, prioritization can take place. That means in later stages, if you would like to decide which step to eliminate, which is the more riskable feature, then this will help you, because we have identified it is of very high risk or it is of very low risk. Then if it is very low risk, it is negligible, we can omit that step, right? So in such cases, for prioritizing the services or prioritizing the stages, it will be helpful. Step 2 is develop an information asset profile. So here profiling will be done, like profile is populated with assets, prioritization of assets, attributes associated with each asset, including like owners of the asset, custodians of the asset, the people who are associated with, explicit security requirements and technology assets. So all these informations will be gathered for profiling. The step 3 talks about identifying information asset containers. So where the information will be available. Operable target here is information. So we are targeting on information. It speaks about possible locations where information may reside. So locations like it may be the hard copy, or it may be people who know the information. Okay, so hard copy, if it is available, suppose for example, if we want to see the result statistics of last 5 years, it is available with us, data is available. But if we want to go back little more, like 10 years or 15-year results analysis, then the data is not available with us. So we'll have to go to the people who were residing in the college from so long and know the information, right? So where the information is available, who is the container of the information, that will be identified in step 3. Then 4th step identifies the area of concern. That means in which area the risk is more. That will be identified. Judgments are made through the mapping of security related attributes to more business focused use cases. So like based on the security, which is the area of concern, which is having more risk, that will be identified in the 4th step. Then in the 5th step, threat scenarios are identified. So where the threat is. What is a threat? Threat are potential undesirable events. So threat scenarios are identified in this step. Results from both malicious and accidental causes are viable to threats. So next in the step 6, the risks are identified. As I said, so the risks are situation involving exposure to danger, exposure to threat, we can say. So the situations where the threat is anticipated. Such areas will be identified. Risk is the possibility of an undesired outcome. This focuses on how the organization is impacted. So by taking that risk, how the or the results of the risk, how the organization is impacted, that will be identified. The risk analysis. So after identifying the risk, risk will be analyzed. So how far it can impact the situation. Based on qualitative evaluation of the impacts of the risk, first step is explicitly brought into the process. So like in the first step we saw, right, it is the first step is establishing risk measurement criteria. So like measurement, how much amount of risk is going to happen, very low or very high or moderate. So that will come into picture in the risk analysis here also for qualitative evaluation of the risk analysis. Then the final step is the mitigation approach. The mitigation in the sense reducing the severity. So how by analyzing the risk, how you can take some measures to avoid that risk or lessen the impact of the risk, how you can reduce the severity of the risk, that is mitigation. 3 outputs or 3 decisions can be taken at this stage to reduce the severity of the risk. One may be to accept a risk and do nothing. So you can accept that risk. Anyway, that risk is going to hit me out, so I will accept it and I will do nothing other than documenting the situation. I will document it. So this risk has come to me, so I have done this. Potential outcomes also. So after that risk hit me, so what are the outcomes, how I suffered, and all those things I will document, and reasons for accepting the risk. So why I accepted the risk? Because I didn't had any chance of fighting with it. I didn't had any chance of preventing it. So I accepted the risk. For example, if we take our education field, some of the colleges are closed due to the lack of admissions, right? So that risk was there and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't take any steps to avoid that risk. So they accepted it. They closed the college, right? So most of the students have come and joined to our college also, right? So that risk they have accepted and they have closed the college. So that is one step, accepting the risk and do nothing. Simply I will document it and close it. The second step is mitigate. Mitigate means ease. Mitigating means reducing the severity, the risk with whatever control effort is required. So I will analyze the risk. So this risk is going to come to me in the next coming days. Like for example, because of COVID-19, we may face the risk of admissions in the next academic year. So I know that risk is going to hit me in the next few days. So what measures I can take to avoid that risk? What measures I can take to improve the admissions in the next academic year? I will do it and I will reduce the severity of not getting much admissions. If I don't get much admissions, no income, no revenue, and I cannot run the college efficiently, right? So I'll have to anticipate it first. I have to find out what risk will be coming in upcoming days because of admissions. I will try to reduce that risk. That is mitigation. Then by walking back through the threat scenarios to asset profiles, a pairing of compensating controls to mitigate those threat risk pairings should be discoverable and then implemented. Then that is for mitigation. So final one is defer a decision. The final possible action is defer a decision, meaning risk is neither accepted nor mitigated. So I will be neutral. I will not accept the risk and document. I will not try to reduce the severity of the risk. I will simply wait for the time. I will at the time what it comes, I will do it. So at the context what is feasible, I will do it. So that is defer a decision. I will not take any decision. I will defer the decision. So these are the 3 different steps which are taken at the mitigation step of Octave. Okay, so these are the different steps which we come across in Octave. Next one is the FAIR. Okay, next risk analysis structure is FAIR. FAIR stands for Factor Analysis of Information Risk, is a technical standard for risk definition from Open Group. It is from Open Group standardization. While information security is the focus, much as it is for Octave, so Octave also focuses on security of information. FAIR also has clear applications with operational technology. So Octave concentrates on information technology and FAIR concentrates on operational technology. Like Octave, it also allows for non-malicious actors as a potential cause to harm, but it goes to greater lengths to emphasize the point. Unlike with Octave, there is a significant emphasis on naming with risk taxonomy definition as a very specific target. So it follows some taxonomy for a specific target. So let us see what is that taxonomy it follows. So this is the ontology of risk given by Open Group. So here we have the risk and it is having several branches. So in the first level it has two branches. One is lost event frequency and loss magnitude. Okay, so loss event frequency means what is the frequency of occurrence of risk. Okay, so how often the risk occurs. For example, so there may be some risks which will be occurring very frequently. For example, in military base, the chances of risk of attacking by the enemies will be more. So every day it may be there, every hour it may be there. So frequency is more, right? So that is the frequency. How many number of times per unit time that risk is going to occur. So that is event frequency. Then that is more frequently likely to occur, the risk, and the example of surprise test given to students, that is not many number of times, right? So once in a month or once in a week it will the risk will approach. So that is less frequent. So more frequent is it is likely to occur every hour or every day. So less frequent is like every once in a month or twice in a month, that is less frequent. So frequency of a risk means how many number of times that risk is going to occur per unit time, that is loss event frequency. Then loss magnitude. Magnitude means what is the quantity of risk, that is high risk, low risk, very high risk, very low risk, or moderate risk. So that is loss of magnitude. So like for example, if you take agriculture field, the growing of crops, so magnitude of risk is very high, right? So like today I have watered, because it was a sunny day, I have watered the plants, but immediately in the evening it rained, isn't it? So there is a loss, the risk is very high. And I thought that I will grow tomatoes which will give me, or onions. So we have seen onions had very great rate in previous days, right? So I thought in that time I will think the onions will give me good profit. So I will grow onions, but when the time I get the crop, the rate of the onions will be very low. So there is high risk in the agriculture field. So that is frequency and magnitude of the risk. So then the frequency of risk is again divided into threat, event frequency, and vulnerability. So what is this threat event frequency? Threat event frequency is the time window. So like within this time window, what will be the frequency of occurrence of the risk? And vulnerability is the how many times the attacker will succeed. That risk also we will calculate. So like we will make the system open to attacker and we will see what is the chances, what is the risk of getting the attack by the attacker, how many times per unit time, how many times it will be, what is the risk, how many times the attacker may succeed in attacking the system. So then coming to loss magnitude, it has again two branches, primary loss and the secondary loss, secondary risk. So what is this primary loss? Primary loss means initial response cost. Initial response cost in the sense, so for example, some plumbing work is there in my home. So like some pipe is broken. So I call the plumber. The plumber will come and fix the pipe and he will go. So again I will start using that pipe, and again tomorrow that pipe again gets leakage. So that will be a problem, right? So primary loss means the first time the pipe is broken, I have called the plumber and the plumber have fixed the issue. That is primary loss. So I have taken that primary risk loss. But again tomorrow that same pipe which is fixed yesterday started leaking. So then again I have to call the plumber second time and get it fixed, and again I have to pay the plumber. So that is secondary risk, right? So that is secondary risk, and the loss will be higher in the secondary time, because first time also I paid the plumber and second time also I am going to pay the plumber for the same cause. So second time loss will be high, isn't it? So that is the risk structure given by the open group, ontology of risk structure given by the open group for FAIR structure, risk analysis structure. So this is about the FAIR. So these are all the taxonomies this FAIR risk analysis structure has: loss event frequency and loss magnitude. Frequency means how many times the risk is going to occur within a particular stipulated time. Magnitude means how much quantity, how much amount of risk it is occurring and what loss it is causing. That is loss magnitude. Then threat event frequency. Threat event frequency is the time window within which the risk occurs. Vulnerability is how many times the attacker succeed in attacking the system, that risk. Then primary loss is first time what loss incurred, and then for the same cause what will be the second time. So second try how much loss occurs, what is the risk of occurring second time loss, that is secondary risk. So this is the total summary of the FAIR risk analysis structure. So these are the points which I discussed just now. Okay, so that's all. So here with this discussion of Octave and FAIR, we have completed the discussion of the fourth module, and these both structures, Octave and FAIR, are very, very important with respect to examination and also with respect to internals. And this diagram what I have given you with the ontology diagram by open group is not there in the textbook. I have taken it from the net. So please write this diagram also when you write the answer for the FAIR. Okay, that's all for today. Have a good day. Bye. Welcome back, students. Now we are going to study module 5. Already we have covered Arduino portions. So now we have to study about the Raspberry Pi. So this, as I have already told you, module 5 is covered by not that older book which covers the earlier 4 modules, but this is a separate textbook which is titled Internet of Things and authored by Srinivas KG, 2017 edition. So this I have already given in a photocopy shop. One of your classmates have given it, so you can find out. I think Shubham Mishra have given it in a photocopy shop, and you can get a scanned copy from there. This textbook you can get it there. Okay, so let us study about the Raspberry Pi, the other half portion of the 5th module. So here we are going to study about the Raspberry Pi Raspberry Pi introduction, which is a low-cost credit card-sized computer that plugs into a computer monitor or television and uses a standard keyboard and mouse for its operations. So that is about the Raspberry Pi. What is Raspberry Pi? But what it can do. So for knowing what it can do, let us see a small video to know what it can do. As you have seen in the video, Raspberry Pi can be used for education purpose, space research, gaming and whatnot. So Raspberry Pi is a very popular and very useful small computer which we are going to study today. Now let us see some important points about the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is a series of credit card-sized single-board computers developed in UK. As you have seen in the video, this is developed in UK by Raspberry Pi Foundation. It is used to promote teaching of basic computer science in schools and developing countries. Several generations of Raspberry Pi have been released. So since from the beginning, many of the versions of Raspberry Pi have been released. We'll see them. The first generation, Raspberry Pi 1, Model B, it is called as Model B, was released in February 2012, followed by a simple and inexpensive Model A. So first B model was developed in first generation Raspberry Pi 1, and then an inexpensive Model A after Model B was developed in 2012. In 2014, the foundation released a board with an improved design in Raspberry 1 Model B+. So in 2014, Model B+ was introduced. Improved A+ and B+ model were released a year later. Raspberry Pi 0, with a smaller size and limited input-output and general purpose input-output GPIO abilities, was released in November 2015 for US $5. So it is a very low cost computer with GPIO and smaller in size. Raspberry Pi 2, which added more RAM, was released in February 2015. Raspberry Pi 3 Model B, released in February 2016, in bundled with onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So in Raspberry Pi 3 Model B, it was having Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. 2016, Raspberry Pi 3 Model B is the newest mainline Raspberry Pi as of now. These boards are priced between $5 to $35. So the cost of these Raspberry Pi ranges from $5 to $35. So this is the different characteristics of Raspberry Pi. So what it gives, different modules, as you can see here. We can see Raspberry Pi Model A+, Model B, Model B+, Model B2, then Model 3. So what characteristics are given here, and what are supported by which of the models are discussed in this table. So there is a quick summary. Cheapest and small, A plus, model A plus is cheapest and smallest single board computer. Model B is the original Raspberry Pi. Model B plus is the more USB and GPIO than the B. So it is having more USB and GPIO than the Model B, and it is the ideal choice for schools. What is GPIO? GPIO is a powerful feature of Raspberry Pi. GPIO stands for General Purpose Input Output. Along with the top edge of the board, GPIO pins are configured as either general purpose input or general purpose output. Then Model B, most advanced Raspberry Pi it is, and Model 3 is the newest with wireless connectivity. It is having wireless connectivity, Model 3. Then about the chip. So this chip in Model A plus is used Broadcom BCM 2835. Then in all these models, Model A plus, Model B and Model B plus. Then Raspberry Pi 2 Model B uses Broadcom BCM 2836 and Model 3 uses BCM 2837 Broadcom. That is the chip used. Then processor, first three models uses ARM V6 single core processor, and Model B Raspberry Pi 2 uses ARM V7 quad core, and Model 3 uses 4x ARM Cortex A53. Then processor speed. So processor speed 700 MHz for first three, then Model B 900 MHz and Model 3 1.2 GHz. It got increased model by model. Then voltage and power draw. First three 600 milliamperes at 5 volts. Then Model B 6 and Model 3 both have 650 milliamperes at 5 volts. Then GPU, general purpose, dual core video core 4 multimedia coprocessor, and for the last Model 3, for all these four it is multimedia coprocessor. Then for the last Model 3 it is Broadcom Videocon 4. Then the size, what is the size of these chips? The first one, A model, is 65 into 56 mm, and rest of the Raspberry Pis are 85 into 56 mm in size. Then memory. Memory, first one is 256 MB SD RAM 400 MHz. Then second one is 512 MB SD RAM at 400 MHz. Then the fourth one 1 GB SD RAM 400 MHz, and the final one Model 3 is 1 GB LPDDR2 900 MHz. Then storage capacity. The Model A uses micro SD card, Model B uses SD card, B plus uses micro SD card, and then Model B again uses micro SD card, and here also micro SD card, Model 3. Then GPIO 40 pins, 26 pins, and all these uses 40 pins. Then USB 2.0, one USB, and in Model B it is 2 USB, and rest all are 4 USBs. Then Ethernet, here no Ethernet facility, but all others will have 10 by 100 MB Ethernet RJ 45J ACK. Then the wireless for A plus, B plus, wireless connectivity is not there. Only for Model 3, wireless connectivity of 2.4 GHz, 802.11 N wireless technology is used for wireless connectivity. Then Bluetooth connectivity is also not there for any of these models. Only it is there for this Model 3. Bluetooth 4.1 Classic as well as Bluetooth low energy connectivities are available with Model 3. Then audio, multi-channel HD audio over HDMI along stereo from 3.5 mm headphone jack is available for all of these. So it is available for all of these models of Raspberry Pi. Then operating systems, Raspbian, Rasp BMC is used, and Arch Linux, Rise OS, OpenEL, EC Fedora. So these are all the operating systems which can be used on Raspberry Pi. Then video output is on HDMI composite RCA. Supported resolutions are 640 into 350 to 1920 into 1200, including 1080p. So what is this 1080p? Is progressive scan. P stands for progressive scan. It is a more detailed image on screen and is less susceptible to flickering. Then PAL and NTSC standards. So PAL and NTSC stands for National Television Standards Committee, and PAL stands for Phase Alternating Line. So these two types are of color encoding systems that affect visual quality of content viewed on the screens. These standards are supported resolutions. Then power sources, micro USB. Micro USB is miniaturized version of USB which is used for Android phones, MP3 player and digital cameras. It supports up to 480 Mbps of data. So those are the features of Raspberry Pi. Then we have this GPIO pinout diagram of Raspberry Pi, where you can see most of the pins, 40 pins, are GPIO pins, general purpose input output pins. There are some voltage connections and ground connections available on this pinout diagram of Raspberry Pi. Then this is the Raspberry Pi 2 model B and its GPIO connection. So here you can see different parts available here. This is 14 squarely placed mounting holes. These are the 40 pin GPIO headers, these ones, and then here it is the Ethernet controller. Then we have this one and this one are the USB-A ports to PC. Then we have this one Ethernet out port. Then we have here the 3.5 mm audio and composite jack. Then this is the CSI camera connector. This is HDMI out port. Then this is 5 volt micro USB power connection. Then we have here switching regulator for less power consumption. Then this is the DSI display connector. Here it is SD card slot, micro SD card slot below this. Then we have here Broadcom BCM2835 chip. Then this is the run header used for reset the Raspberry Pi. So whenever you upload any program, you need to reset it so that it can run from the beginning. So this is also there in Arduino board, right? Reset pin. So such a reset pin here is also there for Raspberry Pi. So whenever you flash a program onto the board, you need to reset it so that it can run from the beginning. Okay, so that's all for today. Let us see more details of Raspberry Pi in the next discussion. Thank you all. Have a good day.